Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. This is your host, as you know, Emmett Muckles. Today, my guest is Rocky Lalvani. We are going to talk about that wealth building time in your life, how not to get into debt, how to live a rich life and spend like you're poor. Everything is negotiable and how to save for the future. We also talk about gratification and moving forward in our societal means to live the billionaire lifestyle. Stay tuned. Hey, Rocky, how are you doing today? And I know you got some great information for us, which everyone can find at richersoul.com.
I am doing well, and thank you for the honor of being able to come onto your show today and share with your audience.
Now, you share a lot of information about finances, about taxes, family life. I mean, if you go to your website, that's what a lot of your information is about. How did you get to this point where understanding finances and life and how it all comes together?
I think I got to this point by constantly screwing it up and constantly asking why. And just right? It's you fall down, you're like, why is this happening? And then actually doing something about it. And I think that's the biggest thing is you learn from your mistakes, you get back up, and then you say, well, how can I make this better? And then you continue to do that. And it's taken me a lifetime. I think we're close in age. I'm 52. It has taken me a lifetime. I wish I knew all this stuff younger. And that's my goal, is to share with younger people so that they don't have to make all these silly mistakes that I did.
But, you know, you've amassed a certain amount of wealth in your life, and I'm talking about financial wealth, but just looking at your lifestyle, you look happy. That's a beautiful thing. Like when I look at your picture, you got a beautiful smile, and it's a genuine smile. So you're richer on several different levels. And today, what I find out is that many people, if they come to me, I had a gentleman come to me and says, hey, you live an awesome lifestyle, and I'm like, yes, I do. He saw me on Instagram and he says, can you mentor me? And I said, mentor you in what? He's like, in how to make money. I'm like, that's the wrong start. I'm like, first you got to find out your why. You got to find out your fire, your passion. And I find out that a lot of people don't know their why. They're living by default instead of with intent. How do you feel about that?
So knowing your purpose is the most important thing. And when I ask people, if you were to take a survey and say how many people know their purpose, I would guess 1 out of 100. And that's horrible odds. When you live in the drift, you're living a life of a lottery. You're waiting for someone else to pick you. And that's why you're upset, because you're waiting for someone else to choose you, for something to occur, instead of saying, this is what I want, this is how I want to live my life, and going and doing it. Too often I hear so many times from people saying, I climbed the wrong ladder. My ladder was on the wrong building. And it's because they never took the time to choose. And I'm struggling with this now with my children. I have teenagers. They're like, what should we do? I'm like, I'm not telling you what to do, because then you're living my dream or my aspirations for you. You need to figure out for yourself, here's the skill sets I see within you. These are your strong points. What can you do with these strong points that allows you to enjoy life and to create financial abundance so that you have freedom to do whatever it is you choose?
That's an awesome response. You know, I need to put you on the rooftop of the earth with the large sound system and just say, go, say it again, so that the world understands that. I find that all too often our system has changed in the recent years where, I'm like you said, we're very close in age. And I remember when you wanted information, you had to go to the library, or your family had a set of encyclopedias and you had to sit down and just go through things, and you had to do a lot of trial and error. But now there's so much information, and a lot of people are making great money in their life, but they don't retain it. Can you explain why people are not retaining what they actually amass?
So I think the biggest thing that happens with that is lifestyle creep. The more we make, the more we feel we deserve, the more we go out and buy. And it happens. It happens to everyone. It's like, oh, I got a raise and I got this new promotion, so now I need a nicer car. Well, you got a $5,000 raise and you just spent $50,000 on a car. How are you going to get ahead? I mean, that's a negative sum game. And so I think what people need to do is to live below their means. You know, if you think about it, you go ask people, say, when was the time that you were happiest in life? It might be college. It might be when they were a kid. And at that point, how much money did you have? None. And yet you were enjoying life. I think too often we're trying to impress people. And, you know, with all this latest social media, it's all about, ooh, who can I impress? Look at me, look at me. And then everyone else is like, I want that lifestyle too. And this is what happens. So your boss, right, you get a raise. He's like, oh, you should get a nicer car. You need to look good for, you know, whatever, clients or whatever. He wants you to buy that car, not so that you look good for clients, so that you have a payment, so that you have to show up at work, so that you can make more money to pay that payment. The auto guy's like, hey, he got a new thing. I need to sell a car. Let's go with the boss. Everyone is kind of running that counter message to you of buy, buy, buy. I don't make any money by telling you not to buy stuff. No one makes any money by telling you not to buy stuff. But yet that's the message that needs to go out. Stop. Keep it for yourself. You're the one who's got to make the message, don't buy, because that's the only way you profit. And that's the biggest thing is automate yourself. Pay yourself first. Why are you paying everyone else before you pay yourself? Pay yourself first. As soon as you get your paycheck, within your paycheck, have money set aside. Or as soon as it goes into your bank account, have money set aside into your profit account and don't touch it and let it grow. That's how I became a multimillionaire. Just slow, steady growth.
So when did you start this practice? At what age? Because, you know, we've gone through some downturn times where some people may have been above the game, but then our economy kind of tanked, particularly with the last financial crisis. A lot of people lost their assets and feel kind of hopeless. So what's the age to start and what's the age to continue?
So the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. So if you haven't started, start. If you've already started, great. For me, I started with my first job out of college. And so I've got a lifetime of doing this. Here's the deal. You can do it at any point. You can cut your spending anytime you want. If you make $80,000 or $100,000 a year, there's somebody making $10,000 less than you that's totally thrilled. Just as thrilled as you are. There's $10,000. Figure out in your life, what's the $10,000 that you're spending that brings you no happiness, that disappears without you even noticing it's gone, and start saving that. And even if you can save 1% today, you'll never miss it. And tomorrow or 6 months from now, add another 1%. When you get a raise, add your raise in. And literally within 10 years, you can get up to, if you do a couple percent at a time, even if you do 3% a year, in 10 years, you're saving 30% of your income, which is phenomenal. And if you can cut your spending and get out of debt, and debt is the worst thing in the world, if you can do all of that, you can get your savings rate through the roof. There are people out there who are living a happy, productive life on $40,000 a year and are multimillionaires.
You know, that was going to be my next question, because about the average income of working people decent working people in America, and I don't mean to be slight with that, I just kind of mean the middle of the road, is about $32,000 to $38,000. And depending on where you live, that can either be I'm doing great financially, I have money to put away, or I am struggling. Do you have any instruments or any ways that you can advise people how to do that? And you've just said a couple, but, as the rate gets lower or the availability of money gets lower, the intent has to be really focused.
The amount of money is not getting lower. It's growing every day. So that's a mindset shift. There is plenty of money out there for anyone. College degree, no college degree, it doesn't matter. There is tons of money out there. You just have to say, hey, money is abundant. I want my piece of it. How do I get that? And that is about providing value. So if you're making in that $32,000 range, first of all, understand if you're making $32,000 a year, you are in the top 1% of the world for income. Think about that. You are now in the top 1% of the world. Are you living a life of abundance? If you're not, or if you want more, that's fine. Figure out how to provide more value so that you can make and gain more money. It's not that hard today. There's side businesses. You go to your boss and say, hey, I would like to get a raise, right? And if you just go say that, they're going to be like, yeah, so would I. But say, what can I do to provide more value to this business? And if you go out and do it, you will see how fast your income goes up, because nobody shows up, nobody puts the extra effort in. And if you're the one who shows up and puts the extra effort in, or creates a side business, or gets involved with real estate, there are tons of ways to make money. And yes, there are tons of ways to lose money. In 2008, I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I made a lot of stupid mistakes. But that doesn't mean that you can't get back up and try again. Mistakes are just learning opportunities.
Now, all of this information that you're imparting upon the Billionaire Lifestyle audience is available on your website and also your podcast. How did the podcast come about? Because, a lot of people start a podcast or say they're going to start a podcast and never do. But, you've got some really awesome and succinct information in your podcast. So how did that materialize, and what was your motivation for that?
So I started off as a blog, and I did that because I wanted to share the financial information. I'm like, how is it that we live with all this abundance and all this money in this country and people struggle? If you're making $100,000 and you're struggling, that's a problem. Why is that occurring? And that was my big question of, why does it happen, and why don't people make the right decisions that they should do? What I found, though, was that I am not a great writer. I struggle with writing, but I'm good at speaking.
Amen.
And so that is where the shift came from, going from a blog to a podcast. It took me probably a year to make that shift. Just struggling. I was like, I want to do this. It didn't get done. And then I set a deadline. I finally said, you know what? I missed my first deadline. I've got a new deadline. And my new deadline was the beginning of this year, January. And said, so this is the first thing I have to get done. And I tell the story. It was probably mid-December. And my kids are involved in robotics. So we had a big competition coming up. And so that was going to suck up 40 hours of my time. I have my job, in the midst of that. And then getting this podcast started was a major endeavor. I had to get ahead of the curve. I had to figure out how to do all these different things. And I had a coach that helped me just lay out the schedule for the couple of weeks to get everything done. I had a coach who helped me figure out the basics of starting a podcast and all the equipment and how do you do things and what do I click on this particular button and where do I host it and how do I put up a picture. There's all these different rules. You just have to learn the specifics of it. And then I had another coach who helped me in how to get your podcast to grow and how to connect with people. So I had people helping me all along the way to be able to do this. You can't do it alone. You've got to find people who are ahead of you and say, help me. And sometimes you have to pay for that. Sometimes you have to pay a lot for that. But when you do, that is where you get ahead. And I actually did an episode on continuous learning and what it looks like in my life. And this 2017, I probably spent $20,000 on educating myself, whether it be coaching, in-person events, courses, books, all kinds of things.
Please say that again, because education does not stop when you leave school. And so many people think that their initial investment just stops. That they have, because I've done it myself. For instance, podcast movement, learning about what the business is and learning about the technology is a continual thing. So I'm always looking for conferences. I'm looking for people. I'm looking for mastermind groups that I can learn from. And it sounds like you're the same, because once people get of a certain age, they feel like they're out of the know. They're disconnected. And you are a shining example of what you can do as long as you're above ground. But I want to divert a little bit and ask you about happiness. So a lot of people amass the things that they're looking for in material, but they're still not happy. Do you have any commentary on that, or can you steer someone so that they can maintain their level of joy?
So happiness is not, happiness comes from within, and it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. I went through that. I mean, that was one of the big mistakes I made, was to amass stuff. And I spent the younger part of my life amassing all kinds of nice, wonderful things. And then I came to a point in my life where I'm like, I have all this stuff, and all this stuff now creates a burden on me, because now I have to clean it, maintain it, and pay for it. I own a Rolex watch. I bought it when I was in my 20s. I hate the damn thing, because it's $150 a year to get the stupid thing cleaned and tuned up. Who wants to spend $150 a year on a freaking watch that doesn't even keep good time? Everyone knows Rolexes suck at keeping time. So now I've got this thing that I've got to worry about and insure and maintain. I don't wear it. It sits in a box somewhere. I've learned, I paid people to come to my house, take all the crap out, and just take it away, because I had enough. I get happiness now from just simpleness. You can go buy, and there's nothing wrong with buying stuff. I still have nice things. We still drive nice cars. We still have a nice house, but they all come with a cost. And you've just got to make sure that that cost and that happiness of what you're buying is what makes you happy, and not what impresses your neighbor. Or you're not buying it for that person, that purpose. Buy it because you truly want it, and just learn to let go. You don't need all this stuff. Most millionaires do not have all these fancy things. That's a lie. Most millionaires, you see them next door, you wouldn't even know that they had that kind of wealth. And it's not about the money, it's about the freedom to be able to do what you want, when you want, how you want, when you have the money to tell your boss to go to hell when he's driving you up the wall. Or, I want to go on a vacation. Great. I can do it because I have the money, and I come back happy. So it's a struggle. It is really a struggle to shift the mindset and to learn to get off the track of society, because everyone's trying to get you to buy stuff. We're so marketed to these days, it's unbelievable. You open up Facebook. Facebook is nothing more than an advertising game. And you are the person that they want to sell to.
Yeah, to me, it's the new television, because television was the marketing. It got into your psyche. And I remember succinctly as a child, every Saturday morning when I would see these cartoons, or I'd be watching cartoons and I see the new toy, and I had to have it. I would bug my mom. And, as an adult, I realized that it was television programming. Now it's Facebook programming or Twitter programming you to buy things. And that goes into the American dream. And we keep hearing these old euphemisms about 1950s America, which kind of really don't apply anymore, because back then it was limited to a certain sect of people, but our diaspora has grown. How has the American dream changed, and what does that mean today?
So I think I grew up in the same generation you did, and the American dream was to buy a house with a white picket fence and a nice yard and 2 kids and a dog and a car in the driveway and a big TV. And I don't think any of that really applies anymore. I did all of that. I did it all. I bought the McMansion. I have the fancy cars in the driveway. It doesn't bring you happiness. And so I think it's changed today. Buying a house may or may not make sense for you. You have to look at the market you're in and whether it makes economic sense. Chasing all that stuff may or may not make sense to you. You have to figure out what's right for you today. I think what we learned is we all were told this is the dream and we believed it. And I think today it's figure out what your dream is. Take the time to slow down and intentionally say, what do I want in life? What's my dream? And it may not be what everyone else wants, but have the conviction to say, I'm going to go a different direction. And that's where the happiness comes from. I think that's where the problem is everyone was following someone else's dream, someone else's plan, not their own. And nobody sits down and says to you, create your life plan. I have a life plan. I know what's important to me. And I think one of the other things that happens societally is everyone says, well, in order for you to be successful, you have to make this big, massive change. You have to be number one. You have to be great. You don't. You can have small dreams of, for me, one of my biggest dreams is to be with my kids and to raise them to be great adults, to be there for my wife. And that's a big enough dream for me. I'm okay with that. You don't have to have these, I've got to change the world dreams. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think the other thing is people feel like they need permission to do things. You know what? If you think you need permission to do something, I'll give you permission to do what you want. Just don't harm someone else. That's it. And don't do things that are illegal, but you have permission to go do what you choose. Who cares what society says?
That's an awesome statement. One of the things that I deal with, and I'm watching intently, is the millennial generation. I have 2 children. I have a child my oldest daughter's 34, and my middle daughter now, because I have 2 more children, is 26. And my 26-year-old, I was hanging out with her, and I saw that it was totally a different dynamic than what I experienced when I was her age. And they had this communal thing, and I asked my daughter, I'm like, why is it, what, I was like, your generation's slightly different. She was like, Daddy, we've seen it all. She was like, we grew up in the suburbs. We watched our parents and our parents' friends work real hard, try to save. We watched the messages that the financial system and society at large told you, and we saw how you guys weren't happy. You were in relationships you didn't like. And she says, this is systemic between all my friends. And we were like, we don't want that. We want the experience of living versus the materials of living. And that's one of the things that people don't understand about the millennial generation, one aspect of them. What has your experience been with the younger generation in educating them or just gathering their information and their mindset?
So my kids are a little bit younger. I haven't experienced so much of that 20s and 30s. I've experienced the teenagers kind of behind them. And it's troubling. One of the issues that I see is that people don't want to do the work. And life is work. You have to do the work. Yes, I think I agree with what the millennials are saying. The problem is I don't know how many of them are actually taking the time to think and plan out what that really means and how to pay for it. Because at the end of the day, if you want things, you're going to have to somehow pay for them. And there's got to be a balance. I'm not telling you to work 60 hours a week. That's crazy. But somewhere in there, you've got to find balance. And I think I think they still have a lot of regrets because I know a lot of them grew up in the sports culture of they spent their whole youth, trying to be some athlete or something. And they, and that's their regrets, is that they didn't kind of experience the life because they were running around on these travel teams and missing out on youth. That's what I see with the kids in my generation. I'm wondering from you, though, are they willing? Do they show up and do they do the work to live a successful life, or are they just kind of lost?
What I've seen is there's kind of two mindsets. There's a very blue collar mindset in millennial where they've seen their family get this installation of knowledge where, look, you literally have to work and save, and you have to do the work. You literally have to get in there and use some muscle, whether it be mental muscle or physical muscle, and you just have to grind it out and it will come. Because I see a lot of young people who are very focused and know what they want. And then I see others who are trying to figure out how to get where their parents are, but they don't understand the roadmap. They don't understand, look, I just have to pick something, and as time progresses, I'm going to get better at it. And as I get better at it, I'll acclimate to this status. But a lot of them aren't seeing that. So what they're doing instead is they're trying this. That didn't quite work out. That didn't resonate with me. So then they try that. That didn't resonate with me. So they're doing this bouncy thing instead of just finding a target and saying, I'm going to stick on this little road until I start to see some progress. Because sometimes, progress takes at least, 4,000 or 5,000 hours just to start to see some progress in your development. And, we often say that 10,000 hours takes to begin to being an expert. And a lot of people just aren't taking the time. That's what it comes down to. And they think time is always available, as young people do. I did the same thing as well.
And I think that's the thing. Every time you shift directions, you are restarting the clock and beginning at the beginning again. And so I think the advice I would give to my kids is, as they look for jobs when they're in their 20s, is to say, even if you don't know what you want to do, what skills do you want to learn that are transferable? And how can you best learn these skills? And who will pay you to learn those skills? So if you want to learn to write, who will pay you to learn to write? Advertising, working for a paper, doing copywriting. Go figure it out. I want to learn to be a good speaker. Who will pay you to speak? Are there companies that need you to go out in the community and talk about their products? So figure out what skills you want to learn, what skills have value, and figure out who will pay you to learn those. Even if you go to a job and it doesn't work out, does the experiences of the job take you a step further and give you skills and give you the ability to move further in life? Not that you go to a job, you spend time there, and then at the end you don't get anywhere and you don't learn anything. You've got to, as you said, it's 10,000 hours to greatness. Focus on what skills can I learn and who can take me the next step on my journey. And I don't think people take the time to think that through. Instead, they go and they apply for 6 jobs, and this guy says, yes, we'll hire you, and they go, okay. They don't say, what are the right jobs I want to apply for? What's my end game? What's my purpose? Where do I want to go? And I think if you think that through and take the time to figure that out, then you can start to put the pieces together to achieve that success.
Yes, that was absolutely correct. And one of the things that's slightly different that I see is when I was a young man in my 20s and 30s, companies were willing to invest in their employees and send them to training so that they could be better. And that's dwindled over the years. But on the other hand, companies will allow you time to go and invest in yourself. So if you say to your boss, hey, there's this conference on Microsoft Word, and we use Word a lot, and we have to do a lot of Excel, and so I'm going to go and spend some time here. I just need the time off. I'll take care of it myself, but it will bring value to you once I return. That's the new mode for moving ahead, because that's going to transfer into your actions and your lifestyle in so many different ways. And that's what I think a lot of people are missing as well.
Well, and so we grew up in the age where information was gold. If you had the information, you were golden because you could apply that information. Today, we're in an age where information is abundant and it's free. If you want to learn something, you can get on the internet, and whether you go to Udemy or edX or any of these sites, there are so many sites where you can learn for free. Information's abundant. What's missing now is people taking action. Figure out what information you want to learn. Go learn it. Most of it is free, or at least the 80% that gets you most of the way there is free. And at that point, just go apply it. I think the biggest thing people aren't doing is, and it's fear holding them back from applying what they want and telling the universe where they want to go.
Awesome. Now, you originally were not born in the United States. You came here at a very young age. And so you probably came here with some values that your parents had. How do those values that your parents gave to you translate into your life today and in society at large?
So I think we came with a certain set of values, which was, not to spend a lot of money. So build and save wealth. 2, growing up, I was always told, you can do anything you want. The world is at your feet. Go choose, go be great. So we were just told that we had the ability to be great. And it was just the expectation. And so when we came here, my dad was only allowed to bring $25. That was what
wow.
So that's what he started with. And it was the 60s, so things were a little bit cheaper. But instead of taking the bus, he would walk to save a quarter. And they would just live below their means. They would negotiate everything. And they would just continually strive to take the next step and build wealth. And it worked. I saw everyone around us was doing the same thing. We started off, living in the not so nice parts of town, some of the worst places that were there. But then every year we moved to a nicer apartment. And over time, that's what they did. They just saved, scrimped, negotiated, and continued to take steps up the ladder. There was never an excuse of you can't. It's just figure out a way and go do it.
And Rocky, you have a lot of great information. Where can people find you? All of your information, such as Facebook, Twitter, website, podcast, all the information. Can you give that to me?
Sure. The best place to find me is at richersoul.com. And then if you're on Facebook, it's facebook.com/richersoul. Those are probably the two best places to find me and the easiest way to connect. Or you can just email me, rocky@richersoul.com. That works too. I just encourage you to take action. Go figure out what you want from life and go get it. The only thing that's holding you back is the reflection in the mirror.
All right, we're gonna go through an exercise here. So
okay.
I want you to close your eyes and I want you to go back in time a little bit, maybe 3 weeks ago. And you're sitting on your couch, you're watching a television program, or you're sitting there like I do. I watch YouTube on my television. And your doorbell rings. You're home alone. Your doorbell rings. You get up, you go to the door. And as you open the door, there is a 19-year-old Rocky Lalvani sitting right there. And he says to you, can you give me some advice?
relationships matter. Go build relationships. Go find people ahead of you and ask for help. Don't think you know it all, and don't make the mistakes. Learn from other people's mistakes. Understand that anything and everything is possible. Don't let people limit you. Figure out what you want. Be clear and purposeful. Go tell the world and go ask for help. It will all work out. Just go open up your mind that things are different. And the reason I say that is I was a really good student up through high school, and I got sick of education. I got sick of the education system because I don't think it educates anymore. No. I think you're just forced into this thing and you're beaten down. And I went to college, and to me, college was kind of useless. I have an MBA. I went back again. Now, like, if my kids said, we're not going to college, I'd be like, okay, let's figure out a plan and go do something else. Because honestly, there is so much better information on YouTube than in a college classroom.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
But you have to learn and then go take action. You can't just be sitting there and watch. We don't watch TV in our house. We hardly watch TV. Occasionally, we will sit down and watch a movie for entertainment. Beyond that, the TV's off. If I'm on something, it's like, I'm constantly learning. Day in, day out, what new skill, what new thing, what can I learn, and what can I implement? And that's the bigger thing. You can spend your whole time in analysis paralysis. I should take action. I don't know. Just start doing it. If you start doing it, that's how you learn. Just by doing it. And you've got to get through the fear.
Absolutely. I have one last one, because you say you have teenagers, correct?
Yes.
Now, if you listen to your teenage children, they will teach you things. Can you remember anything that one of your children taught you and you're like, wow?
I spend a lot of time with my kids. I think it's, they're really good about bringing out the elephants in the room. So I think, they bring out my elephants. And so I'm working on those. But they help me with that.
That's true.
They help me to relax a bit more, and that's what they're good at. Kids are really good at hypocrisy.
Yeah,
they will tell you straight. I tell you, kids don't listen to what you say; they listen to what you do, and they're really good about picking out the elephants in my room.
Awesome. That's really awesome. I have one last thing, and I think about this because it's like a misty memory to me. When I was a kid, families really stuck together, which means I could go to any one of my friends' houses, and in that home would be their parents, their mother and father, or one of their parents. But also with that would have been a grandmother, grandfather, and maybe an aunt or two. And I think that's a lost art. Were you familiar or similar or experienced a similar circumstance when you were younger?
Absolutely. When we came here, my grandfather came with us when we came to the U.S. He was older. Most of my grandparents, we had a bigger age gaps in our generations. And so they had unfortunately died off. But currently, my wife's mother lives with us. So we're living in that multi-generational home. It's been like that since my kids were born. And it's really helped tremendously because we didn't have to worry so much about babysitters. We could go out. We had, foods on the table. So living in that multi-generational household dramatically helps because now you have a lot more wisdom over time coming together.
And the reason I brought that up is because this lends itself to financial freedom to a certain aspect, because now you're not sustaining 4 households, you're sustaining 1 household, and you have the culture and you also have the legacy built in. Because I remember my grandma used to speak with me, and so it was my dad, his sisters, and my grandma, and they all lived in one house for this extended period of time. Then my dad moved, but my aunts and my grandma and my mom would all kind of commune together, and there was such a safety net. Finances were never really worried about like you do today, because you're out there on your own. And I wish people could really see that, particularly in America, because it's not that thing anymore. Children and people feel like they have to be independent, they have to be in control, and they don't want to pull from that generation or just sit and be quiet. Just be mindful how valuable the entire family is.
Well, and I think that's kind of changing, because life is harder, and so these kids are all coming back and living at home. And I would have no issues with my kids coming back and living at home, even if they were married. If you could create that kind of thing of, so to speak, a family compound where everyone is close or in the same household, I think it dramatically changes life, because you have a wealth of life experiences. So when you have a question, it's easier to get an answer because somebody's walked that path already. And then from a cost of living standpoint, your cost of living goes through the floor. I've already got this big house. It's going to cost me X every year, no matter how many people are essentially living in it. So why not fill it up? And that's a stigma in the U.S., failure to launch and all of that stuff. But I think you can look at it the other way. It's if it's done properly, it's not failure to launch. It's building generational wealth. And I think that's important. But the kids, when they do come live in the house, they need to be part of the household expense. In other words, they need to contribute. And if they're doing that, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. In a lot of countries, families live together like that. And I think that's something that has gotten away from it. Even if they're not in your house, they're next door or they're really close. When you live in that kind of a tight-knit community, it dramatically helps with life, with the issues. It just, everything becomes easy. The cable guy's coming tomorrow at 10. I don't have to take off of work. Someone's home. I don't have to worry about it. A package gets delivered. No problem. Someone's always here. And from a safety standpoint, someone's always in the house. So it does make for a much more abundant life. And I think people should consider doing that. Why wouldn't you want to? Why do you have to launch at 18 and go off and make your own way in the world? That's not necessarily the best way to do it.
And I concur with you on so many different levels with that, because I come from Detroit, Michigan, and one of the several of the communities were very ethnic. For instance, in Dearborn, Michigan, we had a very Middle Eastern population. We have a big Indian population, and we have a big Latino population, whether it be Dominican, Puerto Rican, Mexican. And one thing that I see consistently is that families stick together for a long time, and they live within proximity to each other, and they seem to hit a plateau and coast. Versus the American paradigm, where as soon as you hit 18, you're out, go do your thing. Mom and daddy want to live their life. And that doesn't sustain the family for a long time. So I want to thank you so much for imparting all the information that you have, because yours really mirrors mine. And I had to make those same mistakes. And it took me a while to understand that. One of the things that I have realized is this: we pick our partners on the wrong planes. We pick them on the physical and what our media is telling us we should judge people by versus how they resonate with us. So I want to tell you guys, live your life with intent, as Rocky is talking about and he talks about on his blog, and we talk about here on the Billionaire Lifestyle. But Rocky, thank you so much for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Thank you so much.
Very enjoyable.
Thank you. And one of the things I always end the show on is, ladies and gentlemen, realize something. You are a special entity. And I don't mean special like they've been telling the millennials. I mean special like this. You have the opportunity to experience life. And that in itself is a big, broad statement, but it's very succinct. When you get out the shower, I want you to look into the mirror, and I want you to digest who that person is looking back at you. And there are several things that you have to do. You have to understand that you are a spiritual being having a physical experience. You're controlling the ship. So now go navigate that ship on your path. B, the other ships that are passing you or that come by you, which are the other people, treat them with love and respect as you should love and respect yourself. All the doctrine says this, and it is the way we can achieve that utopia. Till next time, this has been Emmett Muckles and Rocky on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. Peace. Thank you, sir.